Thank you, Niall, and thank you, Kevin. It's lovely to have this opportunity to speak with you all today. It's so intimidating standing in a room of your colleagues and presenting. I would rather present to 1,000 students in the concert hall. So apologies in advance if the nerves get the better of me. I'm here representing the European Centre for the Study of Hate, and which is an interdisciplinary research group here at the University of Limerick. This is an overview of some of the issues that we discuss and seek to understand and address at the European Centre for the Study of Hate. And as you can see, these are all terms which are in the media quite a lot at the moment. Terms like power, social justice, hate, race, racism, and hate crime have all become terms which have been politicised, particularly in the United States, but also creepingly in other jurisdictions as well, where when myself and Professor Haynes in 2012 were sitting in the Allegro saying, what do? We just, because I was working in law and she was working in sociology, and we just couldn't get people to listen to what we were trying to say in terms of what you're talking about, Kevin, impact. And because I was working doctrinal law, and Amanda was working in race and racisms in sociology. And literally we came together with a seed funding of €1,200 and began this journey towards addressing and combating hate in Europe. And at that time, we had to explain to people what a hate crime was. People said, well, what? Hate? What? We were called the Hate and Hostility Research Group then. And since then, we didn't think that this would become an issue that was so prevalent and powerful in terms of discourses, national and international discourses. But unfortunately, it has. Fortunately for us, perhaps you might say, but unfortunately, it has become an issue which has become dominant and which has become politicised. And I think UL is extraordinary in that it has allowed us to do this. And one thing about UL is that it gives researchers agility to move and to find one another and to create these spaces in which amazing things can happen. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but it allows us to come together in these spaces. And it's particularly relevant in this area because in the United States, work like us, work like ours is being shut down. It is being defunded. It is the first Institute for Hate Studies at Gonzaga University has been shut down. Centres like ours have been actively shut down and stopped by institutions. And so it is really brilliant that in UL we were able to come together, but we need to be able to continue this work and also to support our colleagues in the United States, and that's the PSA over with for the moment. But I'm sure you all in your own research areas are seeing this as well. In terms of the research themes that we address in the European Centre for the Study of Hate are criminalising hate, growing up in an inclusive Europe, populism, politics and exclusion, and margins and marginalities. So what we are looking at is macro big questions about intranational, international, supranational organisations and how they can support, for example, growing up in an inclusive Europe. But also at the very micro level, we're talking about personal interactions, we're talking about those engagements between individuals in which we can either support inclusive societies or which create divided ones. In terms of some of the research highlights, and this is really only a few, I think the major project that perhaps I think, certainly I speak for myself, from the European Centre for the Study of Hate was the Irish Travellers Access to Justice project, which is a 2-year IRC-funded project which ran here in the University of Limerick and continues to resonate across Ireland, but also internationally, where we are seeing the research being referenced in by international human rights organisations. This is a project which explored the relationship between travellers in Ireland and the justice system, and we have seen it replicated, that idea replicated nationally across a number of other minority groups. We have always been proud in Ireland that we didn't have a far right as such, and it's something the far right didn't have a very politically active centre, but we have seen recently, even over the weekend, 30,000 people parading, marching in Dublin, using terms which are familiar to us who study in this area. And that's something that is becoming an increasing focus of our work. The issue of hate crime legislation is something which has always been central and which indeed provoked our first discussion back nearly 15 years ago. We now have hate crime legislation in Europe, which the Centre has provided an evidence for. There still needs to be some work done on that legislation, and it remains to be seen how it will bed down, but we're working with our coalition partners in the Coalition Against Hate Crime. We also built the pillar, one of the pillars of the Centre is the Public Understandings of Hate Crime project, which is research conducted north and south, funded by the Irish Research Council, which documented the Irish public's understanding of hate crime and produced some really interesting data on both hate crime but also divisions in society. And finally, we have very close links with the Council of Europe in the area of hate crime. I was an expert on the Committee Against Hate Crime, which produced a recommendation. I'll be attending their conference next month, and then we are having a partner conference in 2026 where a delegation from the Council of Europe will come here and will be co-hosting a conference with them. In terms of the impact, this is literally just a few of the things that we have been doing. Some of this impact is generated by invitation. So this is where, for example, we were invited by the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Key Issues Affecting the Traveller Community to present to them. And some of it we just shoulder in on. So we tell people you need to listen to us. And it's not that you need to listen to us, but you need to listen to the voices of people who are marginalised, who have experiences that you need to pay attention to, such as racial profiling or such as hate crime. We were invited to present to the District Court Judges Conference, and if I thought this was intimidating, that was 10 times more intimidating, presenting to District Court judges and telling them about the experiences of travellers in their courtrooms. And we have ongoing relationships with the Garda Ombudsman, or FUSU as it is now, which combines the Ombudsman, the GSOC and the Policing Authority. We've presented to a range of United Nations committees by invitation, and this is all building an evidence base for change and creating impact on an issue which politicians really don't want to act on. The department definitely doesn't want to act on, but we need action on, as we know from hearing marginalised voices. It does require a huge amount of work. In terms of future directions, Kevin, you'll be delighted to hear that our next big project is the development of the Strata Lab, which is social transformation through research, analytics, technology and access. There are mountains of data which have been collected using public funds in this jurisdiction and internationally. The ESS is an obvious one that will be familiar to most of you. And a lot of that data languishes on a computer in Europe, or on a computer in the Irish Human Rights and Equality Commission, or in the Guards, or in the Department of Justice. One report is published and then the data is never seen again. So what we are hoping to do in the Strata Lab, what we are going to do, sorry, I should use that language, shouldn't I? What we are going to do is we're going to bring that data into UL and make it available to researchers so that we can do things like produce longitudinal analyses of of the Garda Public Attitude Survey, for example, over time to measure that change over time. This is not something that you can get research funding for, and it is thanks to the funding from the Research Office that allows us to develop the Strata Lab. Other things that we have in process, we launched the ECSH publication series at this event, or at an equivalent event last year. So we have a report series and a briefing note series, which has been incredibly helpful in generating impact, having that branded information that politicians trust. They trust the work that comes out of this institution in this area, and having it branded and associated with the centre is really important. We are just finalising the terms of the ECSH Artist in Residence, which is a really, really exciting initiative that we are doing, where we're going to bring an artist into the centre to work with us in generating art projects which relate to inclusion and diversity. We will continue the ECSH Global Fellows scheme, which has invited international academics to UL, where we co-author and co-publish with them, and this has been hugely successful over the years. We're going to reignite our Academic Meets Activist series. We have our Council of Europe Conference on Hate Crime in 2026. We will continue our work with the International Network for Hate Studies, and we are also part of the Eradicate Hate Higher Education Network, which is run through the United States. Primarily, we're one of the only centres outside the US which is part of that network, the importance of which we're really seeing today in the context of the Trump administration. We're very busy. So you can join us as a full member or as a postgrad member, and we also have affiliates outside the institution which we are supporting also, and you can contact us on ecsh@ul.ie.